come up to a local still water today to do a bit of fishing. There's a good wind blowing down through, and for the first time in weeks we've got a southwesterly blowing. It's been blowing a couple of days now, a bit of rain overnight. Very different to the easterlies that we've had day after day after day with frosts. Nice mild last night. I've tackled up with a 2-swan waggler with a hollow tip with a little hole on the side. Got a treble A, a swan shot, it's a BB and a number 1 there, 3/8 down the line, and a number 10 on the hook length. Got a size 20 there. Initially setting it to about 11 foot deep, which should, knowing this swim fairly well, it should be tripping up. And what's going to happen, I'm going to cast out, feed a swim regularly with maggots, fish a couple of white maggots, and hopefully pick up some roach and skimmers, maybe a perch or a rudd. Very exceptionally a tench. I don't think I'll get a tench, maybe some hybrids. But it's good to have a sizable float like the one I've chosen. So it's about getting on for a foot long. And although it looks a thick tip, because of the hollow bit in the hole, it's very sensitive, and it will show the tiniest of bites. Main line's £2 Maxima. Got my old Mitchell match. I'm going to start using my Shimano's a bit more soon, and an old Team Daiwa 13-foot match rod. Nice soft tip on it. It's not spliced, but it's a slim rod. Very, very, very good rod. And see how I get on. I cast out, just feathering it down so the line lays out beyond the waggler in a straight line. Pick up fish on the drop sometimes in this swim. And then sink the line. And the thick tip with that hollow tip is as sensitive as a 2mm tip, but it's 3mm, and where it's hollow it really shines up in the sun as well. And the extra weight, I normally fish about a 3 treble A float, 2 swan today, and it's easier to cast with the wind. It's less likely to get slewed off to my right, and the bait should just be tripping bottom, so the float's going to dip and bump up now and again, but the bite should be fairly positive. There's a steady bite on the drop there as it settles. It just kept going under. And what we got here, just a small roach to start with, and the maggot, there were double maggot on there, and there's one's gone and the other one's sort of chomped to death. Feed about a dozen maggots every cast. I think should get 1 or 2 skimmers, not putting any ground bait in at all. Last time I fished here, put ground bait in, not getting bites on the drop again. And it did bring the skimmers on in the end. Another small roach. And again the maggots skinned. I think they're hungry. This time the float's settled right down, so it's dragging the bottom, it's shotted right down there. Well, the 2 fish I've had have been on the drop, which is interesting. Sometimes in here they can be up in the water. Yeah, then it just lifted and then dragged under hard on the bottom that time. See what we got here. Probably another roach. Yeah. tiny bit bigger, maybe about 3 or 4 ounces, not very big. That one picked it up on the drop, didn't really show much of a bite, sort of lifting up and down a bit. Another small roach. It was just tripping along then and dipping down. A tiny little roach, I don't want those. What I quite often find on here is that you get 1 or 2 reasonable roach to start with, then you get these little tiny ones, and then gradually the fish get bigger again. That's on the bottom, that feels a bit heavy. I don't know if it's that big, might be a skimmer. Definitely a bit heavier though. Nice if it was a decent roach, but I don't know. Seems a bit lively for a skimmer, so we'll see. Which means it will be one. Right. There's a roach after all, just about worth the net. That's 6 or 7 ounces. Well, that's more promising, one of that size. That's the first one even that big I've had for ages up here. And straight away one on the drop, but not very big. It's a bit better. Little hybrid. One of the problems of these hollow tip floats is that there's a weak spot where you make a little scoop out of it, and occasionally that's what happens. So I've got to put a new float on. I can fix this float, but not on the riverbank. And now I'm getting a right tangle here. This float is fairly similar, but it's a bigger float, so I think it's going to need a bit more shock. Before you put that into the float adapter, you need to wet it, just like that, and gently push it on. It's quite a hefty float. I think it will need another BB at least. Sometimes I reinforce the back of the bit there with a bit of glue, and this one has got that, a bit of something there to do it. Try a number 1 shot in addition to what's already on there, and see how that gets on. Let's try that. I think it needs another number 4 or something to get it sorted. Find out in a minute. That was on the drop again, almost off the top. There's a bit better fish. I think it's time for a tactical change, getting fishing up in the water. And what I'm going to do is move the float down quite a few feet, but first of all I'm just seeing where the maggot's on the reel stem, and it's about the second proper eye down from the tip ring, so I know my depth, and then I can move the float down about 5 feet and see whether there's anything bigger up in the water. So I've changed from about 11 foot to about 7 foot now. I've got a tangle with the hook length. Should be undoable. There we go. So with the length of the float, probably fishing about 6 or 7 feet, I suppose. And just see what I suspect I'm going to get exactly the same small roach. And just see what happens. Of course the float's going to settle a lot quicker. Straight away into fish it well off the bottom. And first one today, a little rod, a roach rod hybrid. That feels a bit different. That was up in the water. Feels more like a skimmer. And yeah, it's only well up in the water. They're very big. Nice if it is a decent roach, but I think it's a skimmer. Got that sullen, slow go. Probably means it's a roach. It's kicking around more like a decent roach now. No, it's a decent roach after all that. And a great big cormorant slash on it. And roach about 12 ounces. It's been a fun couple of hours fishing. Got about 40 roach, a couple of roach rod hybrids, a little roach bream hybrid and a rod. Best roach about 12 ounces, another one needing a net maybe 6 or 7 ounces. Someone was asking me yesterday, as it happened, fish with a Mitchell match on the Waggler on here, £2 Maxima. And when I'm fishing and waiting for a bite, I always fish with the bail arm open like that. And then I can feel the line I strike. I can feel if there's much of a pull on there, if something really wants to tear off, I can let it go and then close the bail arm. One of the problems with Mitchell matches is that because it's an automatic bail arm, you can fish with it closed, and there's a couple of things. One is a danger of getting round this quite complex levers there. It's easy to get the line round it, and you can get a crack off, you start winding in. The other thing is you go to strike and you accidentally touch the bail arm. Now there, my finger's been in there like an instant, but you do a sort of false strike, so with an open bail arm and you're hitting fresh air, nothing happens at all. So that's worth considering if you do use a Mitchell match. If you're very old-fashioned like me, bear in mind they stopped making them about 30 years ago, maybe more. The other thing I'm going to say is I've been using this Drennan catapult today. It's got a nice little cup there, and I don't even know what sort it is, but it's the handle is supplied is only about ½ an inch by about 1/3 of an inch, or about 12 millimeters by about 8 millimeters, and it flexes a little bit. The trouble with this catapult is that there's no residual buoyancy. So if it falls in the pond or the river, it will sink quite slowly, but it happened to me 3 or 4 times, and I had to fetch it out quickly with a landing net, and you've got to realise it's happened, otherwise it ends up on the bottom of the pond. And people who've drained down their commercial fisheries find no end of catapults, disgorgers and all the rest of it. Same goes with disgorgers. I like ones like this that float, and I make my own bread punches as well, and they float. They're made of hard balsa and brass. They float, unlike commercially available ones seem to sink, which seems pretty stupid to me. When you're on the river, they'll bounce out of the ground bait bowl into the river and sink out of sight. These will float bright red so you can see them. In the past there have been catapults. This one's a good example. It is Drennan. It's painted white because I used to use it on throop and fish into dark, and so I wouldn't lose it on the bank. I could see it was white, and it's got a hollow. The handle is hollow, and there's a plug on there, so it's moulded in one piece there, a moulded plug. Push it in, and then when it falls in, it floats. So why can't that one have a floating handle as well? And what I did to this one, you can see it's quite thick, very comfortable to use, is that I took strips of balsa wood and glued them all around the handle, shaped it a little bit, and then bound round some tape, some quite thick tape, and then I put some pieces of cycle inner tube around it just to hold it, and it's comfortable, and there's enough buoyancy in those bits of balsa so it floats now. That's about it for this week. I hope you've enjoyed it. So plenty of sport, only a couple of decent roach, lots of small ones. Seen a cormorant, which is not a good sign, they're still on here. There's a Canada geese that's been hanging around. He's keeping an eye out. There's a couple of carrion crows on here, and they know that there's a nest on the little island, and the crows would like to raid that nest. I don't know if it's chicks or eggs on there, but the goose isn't very keen on the idea. Very keen on me at the moment. But, until next time, it's goodbye for now.